Hello, everybody. It is Sunday and it is the last week of June. So this will be our last time streaming at 12 p.m. MST. We're going to start streaming at 5 p.m. here in the future. You should see some of those already scheduled. Apparently I got some stuff in my mouth. So hello, cool gamer. So starting next week, we're going to, well, not next week, actually, we're taking a break next week. A lot of us are traveling for family and stuff for the 4th of July in the US. So starting, oh gosh, what is that? July 7th? No, that's a Friday. Starting July 9th. Starting July 9th, we'll be streaming at 5 p.m. MST. If for some reason that schedule affects you, we are going to go ahead and put it to YouTube as well so you can see it at any point in time. Another announcement too, before we get into our topic for today to let you know, is that we are also going to be leaving Twitch. Twitch is now officially becoming a little bit insecure with the broadcast integration. We've had a significant number of disconnects. It's completely on Twitch's end. They're not fixing it. So we're going to be moving to Kick temporarily starting July 9th, along with Facebook and YouTube to see how it works. If Kick has as many problems as Twitch, then we'll go back to Twitch. But right now, Twitch is having a lot of security and connectivity issues between our broadcast studio. Again, it's on their side, and they just need to fix whatever is causing the issue, and they're not doing it. So we're rather than sticking with some security issues, we're going to move on to a platform that has a better profile. So today, it is just me, Thermal Cosplay. Started cosplaying in 2014, and I've been with Cos Talk Live since the beginning. So hello, and today's discussion is going to be around competing in cosplay, which I haven't done this year. I actually signed up. Hi Jess. I did sign up to compete this year at Salt Lake Fan Expo. We'll see if I get accepted. I don't know. I've heard it's really hard to get into, and I'll talk a little bit about what it looks like to apply for competitions as well during this discussion. And I'll even show you what, if I can remember my password, I'll show you what application looks like on Salt Lake Fan X. So, but today we're talking about competing in cosplay and what you'll need. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. Again, we have Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch live presently, so you can post to any of those chats and ask questions. But to get started, I've competed in, oh goodness gracious, probably I'd say at least a minimum of 25 to 30 competitions in the 9 years that I've been cosplaying. And in competing in those cosplay competitions, I believe I've only won, let me see, I have a list of awards that I've won. So I've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've won 7 awards in 9 years. And only 2 of those were craftsmanship awards. So we'll talk a little bit about how to figure out where you should compete, what you should compete as, what you should compete with. But one thing, just don't get discouraged. I'm a competitive person, but I usually don't go into a competition as winning being my only goal. I always have other goals, either prior to the competition or during the competition, that I'm trying to achieve. I actually have terrible stage fright. This sounds so stupid. I'm okay on a panel, but when I'm on stage with a ton of lights in my face, for some reason, I have a hard time. So one of my big things on there is opening up more on stage, being more comfortable with being goofy or performing things and pushing my limits on the stage. So always when you're competing, have more than the goal of winning. Have something else underneath your belt that you want to achieve. So you've got something that you're proud of, because it can become very overwhelming. It can become disappointing if you're not winning every time. Especially when some competitions you go to and you're like, yeah, I've got this, I've aced it. And you walk in and you're like, oh my goodness, did every professional walk in today? So sometimes it gets a little bit difficult with competing. So make sure you have more than one goal. That's a big thing I always say with competing. Number one is make sure you always have more than one goal. Also, when competing in cosplay, you'll want to consider the size of the convention that you're going to. For instance, if you're going to a library expo or like a toy con or a small video game convention, chances are that you're going to be able to compete with pretty much anything. You don't have to make it. You can buy it. A lot of it's going to be getting that crowd cheered up because most of the small one-day expos and conventions, you have to sign up on site, and that means that they probably won't be able to fit in any judging. So you can bring costume either made, bought, thrift stored, whatever you want, whatever you've put together, you can bring with you. The one thing that I will say on days, events where you're signing up the day of for competing in cosplay, you'll want to make sure that you have three very important things. One, you want to have a handler because if something goes wrong in your costume before you're going to get on stage, you want someone to be able to help you. And in turn, that means you want to have some kind of repair kit, or you'll want to find out where that convention or one day expos event repair station is. So always have a handler and always have some kind of repair kit or something with you that you can use to make minor repairs in case something goes wrong with your costume. Number 3, you'll want to be as accurate as possible. In events where there isn't prejudging and where you're really relying on the crowd and you're relying on society to know what you're wearing, even if they're not familiar with your character, if you're really spot on and you own that character on the stage, accuracy and charisma play really big for conventions where there isn't any sort of um, judging. And most of those, again, most of the days where you sign up, for instance, Phoenix Fan Fusion a month ago, almost a month ago, a couple weeks ago, I did a youth costume contest with Amber Sky's Cosplay, and the kids came an hour before they signed up, and we just kind of gave them examples about how to walk down the little walkway that we had, the model strip, and they got to do that once. So usually you only get to walk down a strip or you get to go on stage. Anytime it's a competition where you're signing up, you're typically either going to be asked to hit 3 X marks on a stage if it's a wide stage, or you're going to be asked to walk down a model strip and do poses as you're walking down and then walking back up. Anytime it's a competition where you're signing up the day of, I would say 99% of the time you cannot use your own audio. You cannot do a skit. And that's because most conventions have to be able to go through the audio and make sure there's no copyright issues, or they have to go through the audio and make sure it's safe and allowed and doesn't have verbiage that their convention can't approve of. Hello, Raul. Hello, Raul on Facebook. So that's one thing you want to think about when competing is, where are you competing at? Are you going to a library con and you're signing up the day of? Are you going to a big convention like Phoenix Fan Fusion or San Diego Comic-Con? Always think about where you want to take your costume. So before I get into signing up for those competitions, now that you've decided where you want to take your costume to, you need to think about mobility. So I'm going to show you, I competed at LA Comic-Con last year, and let me close. I don't like when my media player is just like, oh, okay, you can't, we're not going to let you see this anymore, and you're just not allowed to. Okay, fine. All right, so let me open this up and share this with you guys. Okay. So this is them announcing me. And the one thing I didn't realize was I wore this costume all day long. Now, this costume is pretty easy to walk in. It's a lot of layers of skirts. In total, all the fabric weighs about 8.5 pounds. And the armor is really lightweight. The weapons are really lightweight. I did get caught a couple times, and I got caught while trying to rescue something while going down the steps on the other side. I ripped off my actual frog attached to my skirt, which was sad. So I just had to slip it inside of my belt band to make it look like it didn't fall off when I was going down the steps of the stage. The one thing I didn't consider, so LA Comic-Con, they do judging in the early part of the day. The reason I say you want to think about what you're wearing to the convention is, in the beginning of the day, I had no problem wearing about 8-10 pounds worth of fabric and armor. By the end of the day, with the 3.5 platform sandals I was wearing, I was exhausted. And then I had to have enough energy to get on stage, to perform, and then wait through all of the other people to perform. So just remember that whenever you're competing, if you're competing and you are going to wear something all day long, maybe take it pieces off and have a bag with you that you can store. If you're going to a convention and your build is really, really, really big and you have judging that does have to occur early on, then maybe only wear it to judging and then take it to your car. Or a lot of conventions are starting to have what they're calling storage pods. So you can go to these conventions as either a room, an outdoor pod, or very, very large lockers, and you can rent it for $2 to $3. That's really smart to do if you're competing in cosplay, especially when you need to take a break. I know Phoenix Fan Fusion this year, they had storage pods outside that were temperature controlled. They had like exterior AC units. And there were a lot of people that I saw bringing props in there that I saw at the masquerade litter that night, getting them stored in there. And that's really, really smart. Just think about ways to either layer or remove, or maybe if it's a simple outfit, but it's all white, because there's some garments that you're like, this is great, but I don't want to wear this everywhere and have someone spill something on me, or I sit in a seat and they left something behind. Always think about ways to layer and remove or have a change of clothes, and bring either like a small travel steamer and a bag that you can carry your costume you're competing in with you, because you'll never know what's going to happen. I was competing one year at Phoenix Fan Fusion as the Dirty Pair from it's an anime. It's a very old anime. It's Dirty Pair Flash, and I was Yuri and my sister was Kay. Well, it got so hot on the pavement at Phoenix Fan Fusion that the vinyl boot covers I'd made literally melted off my leg. So I had to go and find the repair station, and I had to duct tape the inside of my shoe so that I could hide where the plastic had literally melted. So again, thinking about where you're going is important. Now, did I expect my fabric to melt in the heat? No, because this fabric said it was graded for 200 degrees. Now, did the pavement probably get over 200 degrees? Yes. Yes, it probably did. So if you're wearing boot covers in a really high temperature environment, don't use anything that's vinyl or plastic. It will melt off. And if you do, maybe reinforce the inside with some kind of Cosbon reinforcer or duct tape, just so that it can withstand the heat a little bit longer. Or again, don't go outside and try to stay inside. I had to go out. I mean, this was literally just from me walking to the convention center to a restaurant that my shoes melted. So just think about the environment that you're in as well. So Raul says, I bring a pair of clothes from now on, wearing my regular clothes underneath, and after I change into a costume. Yeah, so if you can layer and it's not too hot, or you're wearing something really simple and you can wear another article of clothing underneath, that's really, really smart. I did that as like a joke at Game On Expo 2 years ago, where I wore my Fallout suit underneath, and then I stripped out of my Fallout suit. I should show you guys. It's like the goofiest thing ever, but I was doing it just to show people that you can absolutely layer things. And it is really, really useful when layering. It makes life so much easier, especially when you're competing in cosplay, to just have something really quick you can change into. So I'm going to open up this goofy little video that Insomnia Matt took for me. And hello, Matt. I see you saying hi. That just shows you can layer, but you're going to want to make sure that you drink lots of water when you layer too, because your skin isn't breathing as much. So you'll want to stay very, very hydrated and cool if you are wearing multiple layers underneath, just so you have an easy way to change out. I think, oh my goodness, I have apparently been to a lot of events in the past. Oh yeah, here it goes. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you guys. Okay, so Instagram stories. This is not what I'm sharing, but we're going to go back. This is Game On Expo last year. And here I was wearing the inspector outfit, and underneath I had my vault suit, and all I had to do was, in my bag, I had carried my belt and everything, so my backpack could fit my belt and my spare items. So it was really funny stripping in the middle of a panel, and Jinx Cosplay was fanning herself and making really inappropriate but cute comments. They're like, ooh, oh yeah, show it. I mean, it was great. It was I surprised them. They didn't know I was gonna get naked. But that's something you can do, and I have seen cosplayers do that, where especially characters that are wearing armor or big ball gowns, they'll wear something really form-fitted and comfortable underneath. They'll take their outfit off, they'll store it in one of those storage pods, or in a coat room at the convention, or in their car if they feel safe storing it in their car, and then they come back to it, an hour or two before they're supposed to report at the green room, and they get dressed. Another thing too, when you're competing in cosplay, depending on the environment, whether it's cold or hot, your makeup by the time you're going to compete may not look very good. So always bring extra makeup with you and keep it on your person so it stays in like AC or it stays in a warm environment if it gets too cold out. So make sure you have extra makeup to touch everything up, because when you go into judging while you're competing, we're looking at everything. So now that I've kind of given you a make sure you know your environment you're heading into, the type of costume you're wearing, if you can travel with it easily, whether it's a sign up on the day of or sign up in advance, which most conventions, like big masquerades and competitions, you do have to sign up in advance. Some let you sign up the day before, but most of them ask you to sign up a month to even 3 months in advance. So once you've signed up for competition, what do you do? There's a lot involved. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Yes, Matt, I am a lizard person. So the joke is because my family's been in the desert, the high desert, actually low desert, right? I've been in the low desert since 1872. Um, we're lizards. I can wear a lot of layers. Like right now, this is a suede jacket with velvet on the inside, and I'm wearing a full polyester dress that I've made myself with tights underneath and a crazy wig with lots of layers, and I'm okay. Like, so you do want to think about what your body can and can't handle, and that kind of goes into competition. So you've applied to the competition, you've been accepted to the competition. Some of them will require you to submit your work in progress in advance through like a Google Drive or Dropbox. Others will ask you to send a video showing yourself wearing it and then doing like a 360 so they can see all elements of it. And then most of them, a lot of conventions are learning to virtualize or create digital files. Most conventions will ask you to bring a work booklet or a work in progress booklet the day of. So you're always going to want to take work in progress photos if you're competing in something that you've made. Even if you're competing in a skit and you didn't have to make your outfit, I always recommend creating a workbook anyways and saying, these are the sites I purchased from. This is what I did to my hair. This is what I did to my makeup. This is what I did to prepare for my skit, because preparing for a skit can be just as difficult sometimes as making a costume, especially since skits usually involve props and they usually involve a lot of memorization and dance routines. So make sure you build books for something that's craft based or performance based, and just give the judges kind of a high level overview of what it is that you've done. Don't be afraid to do that. That's one thing that I see at a lot of conventions is I don't see a lot of people building books for performance-based competitions, but you should, because if you mixed your own audio and you created your own props and you choreographed your own dance routine, you should tell the judges about that, because that's going to improve your score. So make sure you divulge as much information to the judges as you can, regardless if you are crafting or if you're performing or if you're doing both, right? So just think about those things. A build book, I can show you an example of what a build book looks like. I made my Safina costume recently, and it was a little bit tedious. It was definitely a doozy for me. But oh, why are you not letting me log in? Log in, go. Let me log in. Let me show the world. Okay, now I can show you guys. So one application I highly recommend using, you can use it on the web and you can use it on your phone, is the Cosgear app. So this is the Cosgear app. Yeah, you guys get to see some costumes I'm working on. I just realized that I spoiled a surprise. Yes, I am doing a female Gin, and I'm going to have that ready by Game On Expo. I am not making it entirely from scratch though. So even that's like I'm saying, like Safina, Nyreen, Caduceus, all of those are from scratch, but Ganon isn't a from scratch cosplay. I'm still documenting her because I want to remember what places I purchased things from, or what kind of makeup I used, or how many tests I had to do to figure out what fit right. So it's still really good to document your progress, even if you're not going to be making the costume yourself. For Safina, I did make her myself. I set an origin date, where she's from, what my budget was, when my deadline was, and I met all of these things. I collected reference images. which there weren't a lot of screenshots of her, so I watched the movie a couple times to try and figure out what she looked like. I mostly referenced the concept art for her because that fit my body a little bit better. I am going to be making improvements to Safina after having worn her for like 12 and a half hours. I realized there are some improvements I need to make, and I need to buy a little bit more fabric just to fix it. But I will have an updated version of her, so I'm going to add more image resources to this and add a few more tasks and reopen the project, which is cool because you can close a project or you can reopen it. It doesn't have to stay permanently closed. But you always want to have references. Even if you know what the character looks like, it's good just to show judges who may not know all of the media that you are referencing. And then you want to break down what's involved in your costume build. So what do you have to prepare? You know, what do you have to buy? What do you have to maybe model or create? And then what do you have to craft? And what finishing is involved? What painting, sealing? Maybe you have to go in and trim off all the threads on your fabric. Whatever it is, make sure you document it in here. And I always highly recommend tracking it. You don't have to. You can always just do a little check mark and not. You don't have to track the progress percentages. But I like to do it because it kind of reminds me of, oh, I still have like 15% done on that or left on this. After you've broken down all your tasks, you don't even have to go. I mean, this is pretty simple. I've had some that are a lot more complicated. I can show you Caduceus, which is a little bit more involved. But you want to take progress photos. This is the most important part. You want to take progress photos, progress videos. You want to have as much work in progress available. You want to show what patterns you used or how you created your patterns. You want to show yourself maybe even laying them out so you can see how you measured the fabric. And just show little pieces of you sewing to see how you finished things, what your attachment methods were. I used Velcro and zippers. And then if you used any unusual object, like I used armature wire and buckram to help make my hood defy gravity. So make sure you're documenting absolutely everything. And then one thing you can do just to remind yourself is what event you're going to present this at. So I have to add Salt Lake Fanex to this and make adjustments to it and tailor Safina. But that is essentially what a build book looks like. So, Joey, the site is called cosgear.co, I believe. So let me get the actual, it is. So I'm going to send the link to everybody, app.cosgear.co / I believe it's called Planner. And you'll need to sign up. You can sign up with Google or you can create, your own account with whatever email you prefer. It is available on the web and it is also available on mobile, which makes me really happy because I use my phone a lot to document everything I'm doing. So then I have my desktop up or my laptop or whatever, a tablet to mark off, oh, I finished this task. I finished this task so that I don't have to close my camera or my video or whatever it is I'm doing on my phone while I'm documenting. I like that it's because some of these planners, unfortunately, are only mobile. And this one, thankfully, is cross-functional, which is great. So yeah, I sent the link on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook in the comment section. You'll see that it's app.cosgear.co / planner. So I'll pop this up real fast on the screen. I know I've gone through a lot of information and it's just the tip of the iceberg talking about, what to consider, where you're going to store things, how long you're going to wear your costume, when judging occurs versus when the event actually takes place. So stuff like that really affects how you compete in a costume. So if you have any questions about competing in cosplay, please post them here. But I'm going to start getting into what judges look at when you're competing in cosplay. And then after that, I'll go through what you should expect on stage. Sorry, what you should expect in the green room, and then what you should expect on stage. I should have brought my water bottle in here with me. Oh, well. And then after that, I'll show some examples of competitions where I did well and where I did bad and kind of give you like what I think I did wrong. And then I will also leave more room at the end for questions. So if you do have questions or competing in cosplay competitions, let me know. As I said, I believe I competed in close between 20 and 25, and I've only won was it 7 awards? I forgot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 awards. and only two, I think 2 or 3 of them were craftsmen. So I've won performance awards or judges awards based on like my character embodiment, stuff like that too. I'll talk about awards too because and oh, there's so much to talk about. We'll go through all of it. I'll get us through as much as I can today. I really will. I'm sorry. All right. So let's start with once you usually are assigned a judging time. So most conventions they'll say you need to come at 11 a.m. and then they'll get you with the judges between 5 and 10 minutes later. Some they say, hey, you need to be at the green room at 6 p.m. and there's going to be a 2-hour slot and you're on a list and you've got 2 minutes. So typically when you're competing in cosplay, if you're a solo competitor, you usually only get like 2 to 3 minutes to explain your costume. So if you didn't submit a link in advance to the judges for them to see your work in progress, this is where you do an elevator pitch and you show them your favorite parts of that craft and you let them ask any additional questions. If you are in a group, usually you'll get 3 to 5 minutes depending on the number of members in your group. So just be aware that you are not going to have a lot of time in prejudging and it is going to go very quickly. For skit competitions, typically there isn't a prejudging. Most of the judging occurs while they're watching you on stage, but sometimes in some skit competitions, they will take people aside afterwards and ask a few questions, few clarifying questions like, hey, I saw you use this prop. Did you make that prop yourself? So don't be surprised if in skit competitions, the judges approach you afterwards because they want to clarify information in order to make a proper assessment and then determine who wins what. After competing in cosplay, I can say that the levels, the average, the normal levels that you'll see in a cosplay competition, it's usually novice, journeyman or intermediate, and either so it's novice. It's usually always called novice or beginner. Then it's journeyman, intermediate, or advanced. The third level always changes. Typically, you'll see journeyman, and then the fourth level is usually and almost always masters. Some conventions have a professional level after masters for people who make a living making costumes because they don't want individuals who are making a living making costumes to compete with individuals who don't. So they usually create a professional category or a specialized category for individuals that want to compete in their work at a professional level. So just be aware. I will say, for instance, I placed advanced at a convention that only had about 15, 20,000 attendees. And the judging was very different than other cons that are a little bit more organized. It was very young. It was a young competition, right? And I thought, well, now I guess I have to compete in masters category, even though I'd never placed in journeyman. I'd entered at journeyman, was bumped to masters or bumped to advanced and won advanced. So that's one thing you want to think about is if you are bumped to the category at a much smaller event, you do not have to compete at that level at a larger event. Larger events tend to have a lot more competition involved. I'm not saying that's always the case, but there's also more rules and requirements. So what I like to do is say I competed and I won in advance at one competition. The one I won at, they only required 50% of the costume made, and I made 90% of my costume, which is probably why I got bumped up. Whereas the other one I was going to compete at required 85 to 90% made. So there's a significant gap there, and I should have stayed competing in journeyman. And I've learned I learned that lesson now. But don't be like if you have only won one novice and all of a sudden you've won one journeyman and they're two very different size conventions, it is okay to reassess and think, you know what? I want to go back to novice at least one more time. I don't feel comfortable in this. But if you've won 2 to 3 awards in novice, you have to move to the second level. You have to. You at that point you've competed in various convention types, and you've probably seen a lot of different scenarios that I'm talking about. But I had only won one other craftsman award, and it was in novice. And so for me to go from novice to advanced was insane. So dropping myself down made more sense, and it's taught me a lot more too. And now I'm getting more comfortable to the point where I think I can go back up to masters. But if someone bumps you and it makes you uncomfortable, it's okay. It's just one convention. If you really want to go back down, you can do that one more time. but don't sandbag. What I mean by, or not, don't sandbag and don't abuse that particular role. So say you've won 5 awards in novice, you really need to be bumped up. And if you keep doing this and your judges are seeing you at competitions constantly in novice, they're going to question and they're going to bump you every time. So it could affect your prospects of winning if you just stick around novice and try to blow it out of the water because, well, I always place in novice and I'm not sure if I can place in journeyman or advanced. Then maybe you're competing for the wrong reasons. So just think about that and be aware that judges, we have a network and we hear things. And if people are abusing a certain level, we will know. So levels can be really complicated and nuanced. What I like to do if I'm confused about what level I should compete in, I just email the producer of the convention for the cosplay producer or the cosplay coordinator and say, hey, I won this award. And this is what actually happened at LA Comic Con. I messaged them and said, hey, I won an advanced award at this small, at Tucson Comic Con. They only had 15,000 people. These were the requirements. Am I supposed to compete in your master level or am I supposed to compete in your journeyman? And they told me, you are journeyman. Salt Lake FanX has told me, I am journeyman. I do not meet the qualifications for their master levels because that's just how much more difficult they are. So if you are confused, just email their cosplay coordinators. It might take them a couple days to get back to you, but it's a great way to ensure you're competing at the right level. And that way, if the judges ask you why you're competing at that level, you can give them a full honest answer and let them know that you did your due diligence. So the best way to do it. After you've got your level and you've done your pre-judging, you're usually stuck in a green room. And a green room is a place where you can meet other cosplayers. It is probably my favorite spot at a cosplay competition. I know when I've competed at Sabaton Con, which is in Arizona, it's an anime-based convention. The green room is the best place. Cosplayers are walking around talking to each other. We get DIN parents so that if we have to use the bathroom, no one's like, oh no, where's this person? They know where we are at all times. We get water. It is a great place to learn. So say you are trying to up your game, go talk and go network with the other cosplayers in the green room. Learn about how they craft their items. Learn what tools they use, what fabrics they use, why they use it. Get excited about their costumes. Say, wow, that part's really cool. How did you do that? And you will learn so much in a green room and you'll form a lot of friendships that way as well. So we've got a couple comments. Matt said the green room is a great place to unwind and focus and dress down until the masquerade. That is a good point. So if there is a little bit of a wait, say you were the first person judged and there's 2 hours more of judging, you can strip down into take off layers of your costume and relax while you're waiting to go on stage. You can even, most green rooms are also big enough to allow you to practice your performance so that you can really nail what it is you're trying to do. Or it's a good place if there isn't a performance aspect to your competition to learn how to pose. And you can ask others, hey, does this pose look okay? Should I do this? Well, how should I adjust it? So getting feedback, really great place to get it is in the green room. Matt's also said by prejudging, they've seen your work in progress and know what to expect. Most conventions, yes, not every convention. I've gone to conventions where, for instance, when I went to LA Comic Con, and there's one other con, I'm forgetting what it was. Maybe it was Taiyu years ago or Tucson. I think it was Tucson. But anyways, there have been several conventions that I've gone to where all I was required to do was send them a picture of me wearing the costume, even if it wasn't fully done, me wearing the costume showing, look, it's mine. And then I would bring a book. So most conventions, by the time they've seen you, yes, they have seen your work in progress, but not all. So make sure you do have that elevator pitch I talked about. And then Matt said the big thing, as someone who's seen behind the scenes in the stage, you just go in for the fun of it, never expect to win. But that's what I was talking about earlier. If your only goal is to win, you might disappoint yourself multiple times. Always have an additional, I have what I call the tertiary act. I have a primary, secondary, and tertiary goal. So a first, second, and third goal of competing. Some of those goals are achieved before the competition, some are achieved during the competition, and some are achieved after the competition. So I always set 3 goals for myself anytime I'm making a costume or creating some kind of a performance. And that way I have something to be happy that I've achieved, right? So if I didn't win, at least I'm happy I achieved that one of those goals that I set for myself. And then Robert, hi Robert, said I've been bumped up in class 3 times due to the con and others who were entered into the contest. So don't get discouraged. And bumping, it happens. We had one individual at Fan Fusion that it was, I believe, their first or second time competing, and their work was impeccable. They'd spent, I think, 2 or 3 years on it, and we bumped them, and they placed in their new category because it was just I'm sorry, you can't compete in this category anymore. And that's okay. Sometimes you've put so much effort into something and you've made it so gorgeous and so beautiful and so inspiring that the judges are just like, nope, we want you to be at a higher level. And most of the time, the higher the level, the more reward you get from that prize too. So it's usually a benefit. And yes, Raul says that he needs to work on poses. Poses are one thing I highly recommend. I know it's weird. Okay. I know that nobody wants to look in the mirror and be like, but you need to do that. You need to, oh, look, my camera's freaking out because it's like, what are you doing? So you do need to pose. I have thankfully at the end of my haul years ago, I spent too much money on a full body mirror. It is heavy, but that mirror lets me figure out, okay, this angle looks good on me. This looks good on me. Oh, hey, I didn't notice that there was something puckering on the back of my skirt with the way it's being worn now. Uh, it, like I have really large shoulders. And when I put on Safina, I didn't realize that when I flexed, I had ripped out the back of my sleeve. So looking in the mirror is what told me that. And that's why I learned I had to switch out the fabric for something that stretched more because I am one of those people, I have to have stretch in my sleeves up here. I have a 13.5-inch bicep. I just have a lot of muscle in my biceps and I just can't seem to wear non-stretch sleeves. So don't using a mirror sometimes helps you something that you've messed up on too. So posing is a great way to get familiar with your character, get into your character, and also maybe find any weird areas of the costume you wouldn't have otherwise noticed. So, yeah. And then Prue is saying it's so much fun to just play in cosplay, and Matt even admitted there are more letters in play than in cos. So that's absolutely right. I'll get to some more comments here in a minute. I've covered a lot of comments, but now we've talked about prejudging. We've talked about pretty much every element of the competition, except for going on stage. So there are 3 things. Again, I have the rule of 3. 3 things you want to consider when you're competing in cosplay. Oh, guys, I'm talking so much right now. This is weird. 3 things you want to consider when you're competing in cosplay. When you're going on the stage, 1, can you climb stairs? Because if you cannot climb stairs, you need to tell the cosplay coordinator or producer or whoever the stage manager is right away. A lot of conventions are foregoing ramps now and instead getting elevator lifts. So you'll probably need to, like LA Comic-Con had a lift, so they basically would stagger it where people who couldn't use the stairs, they'd stand in that lift in advance and you could like see the tip of their head, but there was nothing they could do because the lift took a moment to rise. So make sure you tell them if you can climb stairs or not. Number 2, if you have some sort of photosensitivity or allergy or just something that cannot be on stage, I have a history of seizures. And so I always tell the stage manager, please, no high frequency strobes. Low frequency and low doses are okay. But even then, I would prefer no strobes at all, but I understand if you can't completely remove them. So I just give them an alert. So they're aware of any sort of accommodations that I require. And then 3rd, are you comfortable being alone? Because this is the point in time where your handler cannot come with you. So you need to be comfortable being on stage. Some exceptions, and I had a funny hiccup. Sorry. Some exceptions and accommodations can be made if requested in advance. But fire marshals are really strict about who can be behind stage to prep for entering onto the stage. So make sure you just have everything discussed with the stage manager in advance. Okay. I also recommend, if you can, going into the room that has the stage you're performing in and taking a look at it so you're aware of the size of it. I had one event where we went into the room, we saw the size of the stage, we went back behind the stage to get ready, and we realized they'd taken away the front half of the stage. So the stage had been cut in half, and there were 8 of us. We figured it out, but that's one thing. Be prepared to adapt to a situation. We've had incidents where people have gone on stage and the wrong music is played. Just own that music, even if it makes no sense. Go with it, improvise, have fun, and then later on, just let the judges and the stage manager know this is what happened. This might be why I seem a little awkward on stage. Sometimes the lights go out. Just stand there very still, calm, and wait until the lights come back on. If the lights don't come back on for some reason or a power outage happened, usually the stage manager will come up and tell you what to do next. But expect the unexpected when on stage at a convention. Sometimes sound files corrupt. We had one person, the reason their music didn't play is because their sound file corrupted and they couldn't actually get it to load. On their specific software. So these things will occasionally happen. Usually the convention will notify you in advance, but there are times where they're in the middle of it, they're producing, they're playing, and it just doesn't work, and they don't have more than like 30 seconds. So they just usually signal the stage manager, and stage manager is like, this is what's happening. I'm sorry, please improvise. So be prepared for the unexpected. Ask whether it's stairs or ramp or lift that you're going up, and know that those stage lights are going to be so bright, chances are you will not be able to see anybody in the audience. So if you're trying to use a person as a prop, first of all, get permission for that. Not all conventions allow that. But if you are trying to use a person as a prop, usually they're going to need to be on the other side of the stage to come up with you, because they're not going to, chances are you're not going to be able to see where they are in the audience to signal them. And a lot of the times, because of fire marshal rules and safety rules, you won't be able to allow someone to come up from the audience onto the stage. So again, check with the stage producer, make sure the stage manager or the cosplay producer, and see what rules are allowed for interactions on stage. The biggest rule, the one that most cosplayers need to be aware of, whomever your master of ceremonies is, you cannot use them as a prop. You can say hi to them or interact with them. I mean, I've seen people give them roses or give them a scroll and say thank you for your work before they go on stage. That's fine, because you're thanking them for the hard work they're doing for introducing you. That's okay. But they can't be used to help you bring things on. So if you have huge props that need to be brought on, or you're going to hide behind a cool stage and you're going to pop out, whatever it might be, you'll need to either ask for stage ninjas, or you're going to need to ask for permission to have 10 to 15 seconds prior to your music starting to set up your stage. Usually that's all you get, is 10 to 15 seconds. I don't think I know of any other convention that gives you more than 10 to 15 seconds. And that's just because masquerades usually have around 50 people in them, and they need to get, well, not even 50 people, they have more than 50 people, they have 50 entries on average, and they need to get through those entries or the masquerade will go a really long time. So you usually only get about 10 to 15 seconds to prepare on stage before your music cues if you have to set up some kind of prop. So just be aware of that, okay? We have some more comments, and then I'll kind of get into what happens after everything has occurred, after you performed. So, oh my goodness, we have a lot of comments. Let's see here. So, yes, Prue says Gaston. I was Gaston. That was fun. Robert says right now judging at cons is pretty subjective to the judges. So and that's right, because there isn't one universal standard. It changes. I've spoken to people in Canada. They do things one thing. People in Seattle do things different. Out here in Arizona, it's a little bit different. Even every con in Arizona has a different way of tackling things. So just understand, that's why reading the rules and guidelines is really important. And that way you'll actually know what is expected of you at the con and kind of get an idea of what maybe the judges will be looking for. Some cons you have to go on stage and you can't compete. You just kind of walk on, do poses and walk off. So yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. We talked about having a handler. Matt mentioned having a handler. Yes, having a handler is good. We have had people in green rooms before where if you need help in a green room, usually that's expected and that's okay. But understanding that once you're outside of that green room, you are on your own. So if you need help, again, you need to talk to that coordinator, stage manager, or cosplay producer, because there's not going to be anybody there to help you. A lot of the time, they will let your handler go backstage with you to get anything prepped or help you walk up steps if you need help, like holding your skirt. But most of the time they will not let you on stage. So just having a handler in the back and asking permission, really important. Robert said the best advice that I was given was focus on someone or something in the front of the stage and don't look at the crowd. That is a good point. Usually the front of the stage, there's these huge speakers, and you're going to be, if you're sensitive to sound, please wear like earplugs. It is very loud on stage. And the big speakers are there, and they're good point of focus. Don't look down too much. We still want to see your face. We want to see your performance. You need to have smiles or anger. Please emote. And if you're thinking you're being too dramatic, you're not. Be as dramatic as possible on stage. The more drama, the better. Think about the fact that if you were right next to me and I was in front of you and I was doing goofy things, I wouldn't have to be as dramatic because you can see all the small lines on my face and you know what they mean. If I'm 100 feet from you, I need to see a lot of body movement to understand what's going on. So be dramatic. And yes, focus on something that isn't the crowd so that you have awareness of your stage presence. Ash Queen says music mess ups are the worst for new people. Yes, music mess ups are very difficult. That actually happened the first time I competed at Sabo in this costume. This is like the first costume I've ever made completely from scratch. I cannot believe how long it has lasted. I've had to tailor it and take it in a lot, so it was heavier when I first started wearing it. But this costume, they played the wrong music, and I just walked on stage and I did a creepy thing, and I turned around and the right music played, and then I started walking backwards and did like the same movement, and it was, just to get the crowd going. So, but it is hard. I don't. I think honestly, it was just anxiety making me do the motions. Sometimes your brain takes over for you. um, oh yeah, that's one other thing is most MCs will leave the stage when you come on the stage. So make sure you step aside so they can go down the stairs or the ramp or wherever it is you are. Jinx is just talking about that. But some stay on a podium, which is why interacting with them is important not to do. So if they're on a podium and they're watching you, ignore them. They're not there. It's just another speaker or another light, and keep going. LA Comic Con is one of those ones where the MCs stay on the back of the stage and they keep talking the whole time while you're on stage. So it was really distracting, but I just focused hardcore on two people in the crowd that time because it's a stage that's in the middle of the convention hall, the exhibit hall. So it's not even in its own room. It's not a ballroom. It is in its own, like it's just in the middle of the convention hall. And sometimes that happens. So you can see all the exhibitors and all the artists, and you can see them selling stuff. I just focused on one person in the front and was like, I'm gonna stab you with my sword, but I, just pretending like if I could have reached them. Just really like, and oddly enough, that person was a media person, and so I found a shot of myself looking really pissed off. One of the LA Comic Con newspapers. It was great. But sometimes you get really funny shots. So let's talk about real fast because we're getting near the end. There's a lot of comments. This is great, good interaction. Let's talk a little bit about what happens after you've competed. You're done. There's going to either be two things that they do. They either have a designated space in the front of the stage where competitors can sit down and relax, and you can absolutely start taking layers off. You don't have to keep it on for awards. You can totally relax after you've performed on stage. Be it a skit or be it craftsmanship, once you're done competing, just relax. You're good. Once it's all over, once everyone's competed, the judges will leave. And these are the things we are looking at. At least I've judged 9 competitions. I think I've judged as many competitions as I've like won at, which is funny. Or more, I don't know. Anyways, I've judged quite a lot now. And that's just because I use a lot of unique materials that most people don't, especially special effects makeup. So I'm usually called in to ask to judge about because of the unusual skill sets I have. So what we're looking at the accuracy based off of the reference images you provided us with. We're looking at how clean the garment was and how clean your performance was. Did things fall off while you were performing? Were they supposed to fall off? Stuff like that we're thinking about. We're going to look at the number of techniques used. So if you only did foam work, okay, then we're going to scrutinize that foam work. Are your seams clean? How are your edges? Is the inside of it lined? Can we see exposed buckles or exposed foam? We're going to really go through all of that, right? And then another thing we're looking at is the variety of materials used. So we're talking about the number of skills and techniques used and the variety of materials used. Typically, most conventions go off of like there's a 20, so you get 25 points or 25%. So it's like 5 points per section, and it adds up to 100. So there's or adds up to 25, or like yeah. So 25% of your score. Here we go. Let me actually, because I have this broken down. I kept kind of information that I usually keep for myself about how I break down on judging, just so that people are familiar with it. So let me go in here and I think this is it, or maybe that's not it. We'll see. No, I'm gonna go back. Ah. I'm just pulling up information. If you guys have any questions, please ask them. I'm going to pull up just information to kind of tell you what it is we usually look at when we're judging and kind of the percentages assigned. So, yeah, okay. So, usually 25% of your score goes to accuracy. 25% of your score goes to techniques used. 25% of your score goes to materials used. 25% of your score goes to performance. And 25% of your score goes to cleanliness. Hope that makes sense. So that is typically what they're looking at. And then we add up all of those numbers. And after that, if we have people who are like the same score in the same category, then we look at the percentage made. So did that person meet the 80% made item, or are they at 65% or 50%? Sometimes you have to nitpick, and it sucks. And sometimes we argue. So judging is very tedious, especially when you're looking at 50 entries. And 50 entries usually means there's 75 people because there's groups involved. So understand that just because you didn't win, that does not mean that you are not competition worthy. Just know that sometimes it was a really difficult decision. I will say that most conventions have a first, second, and third category, and they're novice, intermediate, and master's categories. They usually have a best group, because there's typically not as many groups that enter, and then they have a best in show. And then a lot more conventions are now allowing their judges to offer judges awards as well, so that we can do honorable mentions or judges awards for people who we wanted to place, they couldn't place because of like scoring that was just like a point or two off, and we really thought that they did, exemplary. So out of 50 entries, you most likely only have 10 awards. So think about that for a second. A fifth of the entries competing may win. That's why we say don't go there with winning being your only goal. But I have a lot of comments, so I'm gonna start going through the comments. Oh my gosh, you guys are busy today. I'm by myself. Like, so yeah, so Matt says confidence crushes it on stage. Even if you're new to the stage and you feel goofy, just own it. It's absolutely true. Also, showing off your work and getting into character really kind of brings people's attention to you. And the more you can bring your attention to yourself based off of your character representation, the better. Raoul says, I'm becoming more energetic when it comes to moving on stage to give a good presentation of my character. And that's exactly what you should do. Have lots of energy and just feel like an absolute goofball, because the crowd's going to love it. Robert says, be careful after competing, your adrenaline can crash, which is true. So that's why a lot of the times conventions will have water stations next to wherever the cosplayers are sitting. If after you get off stage, they are ushering you towards the seat and you're like, no, I need to go back to the green room, just tell them, and usually they'll make concessions and allow you to go back to the green room, or they'll find a quiet, cool space for you to sit and rest if you need that. Just let the staff know. They usually have water and juice boxes available for anybody that might need them. Jessica, my question is a compliment. You look great in that wig. Thank you. This white wig. So I forget with white wigs that if you sweat at all, which I was sweating a little bit in my room, my makeup ended up on my wig. Like, so I just had to like turn my bang, but this is now the same color as my skin. I was like, yeah, this is just more makeup. No one's gonna know that the wig turned peach. Also, Robert said, having judged multiple competitions myself, I would suggest that folks deciding to do competitions find out who the judges are and look at what kind of work they do. This is a really good bit of advice. If some conventions will announce their judges in advance, and say you're a big armor builder, but you're going to a convention, you notice that all the judges are primarily sewing judges. Maybe you choose a different convention to take your armor build to, and that's okay. There are some like Emerald City Comic Con is a convention that I would love to compete at, but I never will. There's a big reason for this. They don't have standard categories. They are very big about reusable materials and upcycling, which I try my absolute best to do. And I can tell all of you, there is if you have fabric scraps, um, there is a place that recycles them. I believe you just have to like send. It's like $20. Let me find it. I'll find the link and share it with all of you. But they accept like everything, every little fabric scrap. It's called. I think it's called a. Yes, it's called the Take Back Bag, and it's by 4 days. And what they do is you just pay $20 and you get this bag and then you send it out to them. It accepts clothing, socks, underwear, outerwear, linens, shoes, and bags. They also accept textiles of any kind. So you can send in textiles and it does not have to be like it can be fabric scraps as well. So let me see, we accept all textiles, ripped, torn, stained, anything you think you don't want to use, we will take back for you. So I'll just post this to all of you. And this is when my local recycling facilities that recycle fabric aren't available, I buy this bag and they don't care whether it's put together or not put together. They take any textile, which is wonderful because I've seen a lot of customers are like, look at this. And I learned about this in Seattle, which was great. But Emerald City Comic Con has very unusual categories, and unfortunately I never seem to quite fall into one of them. Like I usually fall into two, which puts me at a disadvantage. So there are certain competitions I know I myself will never compete in because their categories don't meet my particular standards, right? So that is a really good bit of advice: is research the judges and research the categories so that you know going in what to expect at the competition. Prue says you cannot research enough. When deciding on a con, I like to look at past years on YouTube to make sure I don't repeat the same thing. That, like, it's even if you are going to repeat something, it's okay, but you want to make sure you have your own twist on it. The last thing I want to say as we wrap everything up, if you have placed at a convention, so say you are a novice and you won first in novice, and you want to compete in that same costume again, you can, but you cannot compete in novice. You have to compete in journeyman. So you take that same costume and you win first place in journeyman. Cool. You can compete again, but you can't compete in journeyman. You have to compete in masters. Say you place first place in masters with that costume after all of these competitions, you've been making adjustments every time. Once you've placed first place in masters with that same costume, it can no longer be used in a competition anymore. Okay. It could be used in a showcase. It could be used in a fashion show. That's totally fine. Cannot be competed with. If you compete with it again, it is called sandbagging. Sandbagging occurs when you take the same costume to different conventions and compete in the same category, even though you've already won in that category with that costume. Doesn't matter where you compete. Say you placed novice with a really cool Raven cosplay and you want to go complete, and it was like only a 10,000 person con, and you want to compete at a 50,000 person con. You already placed a novice in that costume. You do have to jump a level. So just be aware of that. I have had incidents where, as a judge, I've always been polite, but I've had two people that I've judged that I literally had judged earlier that year and placed that brought the same costume and the same level and unabashedly were trying to win again because they wanted the prize that was a part of that level. So we remember you. Judges remember you. Attendees remember you. I had an attendee after Phoenix Fan Fusion approach me saying, hey, did you know this person has already competed in that costume? And I said, yes, I am aware because I follow that person. A lot of the judges are probably going to follow you on social media because we're curious. We want to see your work in progress. If it's not shared with us, we want to see what's going on. And a lot of the times we want to support our local buddies and we want to make sure you're getting all of that reach that social media needs. So don't think that you're operating in a vacuum unless you really are operating in a vacuum. Then I don't know how you do that. That's amazing. But just be aware, sandbagging is a thing, and if you've competed once in a costume, please at least go up another level. And I always recommend if you're competing in the same costume that you at least adjust it. So Yojimbo, I competed in multiple competitions with him, but I never placed. Never placed. So if you compete and you don't place, you can keep competing in that same costume. That is okay. It's only when you place and you try to compete at the same level that it becomes a problem. Okay. So now that I've won second in journeyman with Yojimbo, I can never compete with Yojimbo in a journeyman level ever again. I have to compete in master level for Yojimbo. Now, Yojimbo won an award. That was my final goal for him. I didn't care what level award. And I was like, goodbye, Yojimbo. Yojimbo is in retirement. Because that costume I've worn so many times is so heavy, and I intend to make improvements in the future if I ever redo Yojimbo. So Ash says I've seen that a few times and it's crazy. And I think a lot of what it is people don't know that you cannot compete in the same costume after you've placed at the same level. So just you can compete, just go a level up. And once you've hit masters or professional, you're done. Like that's it. That costume has to be retired, at least from the competition scene. It can be put into a showcase and fashion show. I've seen people do that just so they can keep showing off their work. That's okay. I mean, Yojimbo wound up in a museum for 2 years. Yeah. So that could happen too. Your costume might wind up in a museum. It's wild. Anyways, it is now 1 o'clock. If you do have questions, you can go ahead and contact us at costalklive.com, which I am going to pull up for all of you right now. You can contact us at costalklive.com. We do have a contact form there. If you want to ask me specifically about cosplay competitions, you are welcome to contact me at thermocosplay@gmail.com, or you can go to my website and submit my contact form as well. I've competed a lot. As a reminder, we are taking a break next week. So on what is that? Sunday, July 2nd, we will not be streaming. And then on Sunday, July 9th, we will be moving to our new time. And our new time will be 5 p.m. MST. We've already scheduled some of them, so you should see those loaded up. Additionally, we are moving away from Twitch temporarily. We're going to test out using Kick, which is a new streaming service, considering a lot of the connectivity and API issues that Twitch is experiencing right now. We're kind of tired with them disconnecting. It is entirely on their end, and we need a better resource because Twitch is not working with a lot of broadcast studios are having problems with their integrations right now, specifically to Twitch. So we will keep Facebook, we will keep YouTube. What we are going to, starting July 9th, move to Kick. So we will make sure that we share that. Also, yes, thank you, Jinx. We are also going to be having an event on Saturday, July 8th at Legacy Park. It is Uwu Nights, and we are from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. going to do another Cos Swap Mart. This one's a lot bigger. We're going to have more people, if I recall correctly. Okay, and apparently Costalk Live doesn't want to show me it. Show me my Uwu Nights. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys this, and then I will say goodbye to all of you. Do I know how to share windows? Apparently I don't. There we go. Okay, so we are going to have Uwu Nights right here. And we have the address. It is Legacy Park. And we will have the following vendors present. It's going to be indoor. It is entirely free. And after 8 o'clock, they are going to do an 18+ rave at the arcade. So if you want to have fun and you want to buy some geeky goods and you're looking for it at a discount, or you just want to come hang out and maybe have some drinks and some food, because if I recall correctly, there's going to be some stuff. There's some stuff around there as well. Just come with us. See us Saturday, July 8th, Legacy Park from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. We will see you there. Let me share this link with all of you guys so you know where to go. And Jinx has just told me that cos swap options are still open. So if you do want to be a vendor at Cos Swap Mart and you need to sell its secondhand items or gently used items and toys and stuff like that, if you do need to do a little bit of summer cleaning from your cosplay stash or your toy hoard, you can do that. Go to costalklive.com and or costalk-live.com, and you can submit the application there for becoming a vendor. I believe a table is only $10, so it's pretty cheap to get a table. Thank you again. I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. I hope this was insightful for competing in cosplays, and we will see you again on Sunday, July 9th at 5 p.m. Bye, everybody.